retirement planning. It's something that affects all of us at some point. Today with me is Sam Foreman from Generations Financial Group. Sam, how are you?
Fantastic.
Thanks for joining us. Now, you have a very interesting background, and I want to get to that in a minute. But right now, there must be so many people that come to you and at all points of their lifetime. What is it that keeps you up at night?
Wanting to provide the right kind of service for people that are near retirement or in retirement, and correcting some of the things that I've seen in the planning field for financial planning over the last 33 years. And so I think the biggest issue is income planning. So many people don't really have a plan. So, I mean, there's several things that we got to be concerned about, not just the investments. The investment plan should change when you're within 5 years for sure of retirement. And people aren't doing that, and they don't have a tax plan. You know, we got need a tax plan for the now while you're still working, but it all changes when you're getting close to retirement. That changes. So, and then the estate too. So we want to cover, and we found a way to get it all covered with the professionals that we need.
When we were talking, you were telling me about your background. I think it's very interesting. So let's hear a little bit about that.
I started out as a therapist, and initially with respiratory, and eventually moved into the heart. I even was involved in open heart surgery, and started managing several diagnostics departments. But I always try to keep it simple. And I think back when in the 70s when I was very active helping people with lung disease, I just always try to figure out, okay, what is the problem, and then how do we make it better? And really, I've followed through with that all the way through to what I've been doing now for 33 years.
So you were fixing their health, and now you're fixing the rest of their life, so to speak.
Yeah, so I just kept moving along in the healthcare field. Finally got up to hospital administration, and I wasn't sure at that point, is that what I really want to do? Because now I'm away from the patient, and I really enjoyed trying to help people get better. So that's when I made the big cut, and I had already was doing some taxes for some of the employees. I was kind of moonlighting and picked up a couple licenses, and my wife encouraged me. She said, well, if you really like this field, and you don't like the politics, because I was complaining all the time about the politics. Seems like the higher you go in an organization, you're always going to run into politics. Sure. I like working with people, and that makes me happy.
Did you find the transition easy?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't difficult at all. As I said, I was already working part-time, and my wife continued to work as a nurse. We've always been a team. We got married in 1970, so next in September it will be 48 years. So, and now she works with me again, and we got a very unique setup.
So let's talk about retirement. What are some of the things that people really need to prepare, and when's a great time to start?
Well, right away. Okay, even 40 and 45-year-olds, they're not thinking about that, but there's some things that they can do right now, and many people have been told in the past, let's take tax for example. Many people have been told, put every penny you can into pre-tax. That's your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, TSAs, money purchase plans, profit sharing plans. Put every penny into those things. And, that's seemed to be the right advice, but I disagree with that today, because the tax pendulum, if you look at statistics, the tax pendulum swings. It gets lower, it gets higher. And so let's take somebody that's getting within 5 years of retirement, and they put every penny into pre-tax. Now they're in retirement, and almost all their money is pre-tax. What if the pendulum swings the other way at the worst time, and now they're on the takeout phase? So you wanna have balance. Balance is the key. So you wanna be doing things. There's plenty of strategies out there that will give somebody balance, particularly in the 40 to say 50, 57 range, that if they're going to be working 5 or 10, they need to find out how to prepare for the later. Good businesses operate that way. They have a plan for the now to manage and control their taxes, but they've got a plan for the later to manage and control the taxes. Generally, people don't do that. They're always planning for the now. So we got to broaden the picture a little bit and think about the 3 areas that have to be solved and stop with the Band-Aid approach that has been used in financial planning for so many years.
And when people approach you, what are maybe like the 3 biggest mistakes that you've seen that with what they have, I guess, existing already?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is they don't know what they don't know. Now, isn't that a profound statement? You don't know what you don't know. And I guess if I have any edge at all in doing what I do, it goes like this. I know that I don't know what I don't know. So I'm recognizing that the learning never stops. And, once you think you've arrived and you're suffering from a disease called the I have arrived syndrome, and you're going to be missing some things. So I keep telling people you've got to keep learning. You've got to be one step ahead. The biggest problem they have is they don't know what they don't know. I'll start asking them, okay, I see you've got these mutual funds. What is it? And they can't answer that. Who's running it? You got a lot of money in that fund. I don't know. How long they've been there? I don't know. What's the rating in that fund right now? You've got a lot of money there. I don't know. And so I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then we go on to, well, why are you in the fund? Guess what they're still saying? I don't know. How long are you going to be there? I don't know. And so we need to start and get people to the point where they want to know. So the next question is, when do you want to know? Okay.
And do you find that people pretty much leave their retirement plan as is, where they should be much more proactive with it?
They tend to do that, and again, I have a problem with that. Quite often, people have been dollar cost averaging. That's putting the same amount off of their paycheck into their account, and they've been doing that for years. And that's an okay time to be taking a fair amount of risk, because when you put those dollars in, then you're buying. If the market's up, you're buying less. Mm-hmm. And if you put the same dollars in, and the market's down, you're buying more. But that's good as long as you've got 5 or 10 years to go yet.
Right.
But when you're within that 5-year range, okay, something should be changing there. Okay, so a lot of people were caught in that in 2000, 2001, 2002, and got hurt pretty bad in 2008.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can be avoided by having a strategy, a really thought out strategy, and having an income plan for the future. Again, that's one thing that I'll ask people. I said, okay, can I see the income plan that your last advisor prepared for you? And they just kind of give me a stared look. They don't have it. So all the emphasis has been pre-retirement is on accumulation. Okay? All right, when we're getting close to retirement, doesn't it make sense? We got to start thinking, what about the income phase now? So, and that requires tax planning, still investment planning. I'm not saying people should get out of the market, but also the estate planning. What happens if something happens to you? How is your estate protected?
And so it's interesting, because I'm just thinking, if these are people that play the stock market, they're looking at that every day and adjusting their investment as they need, but they're not doing that with their retirement. So talk to me about the income planning. How would you sit with someone with that?
Well, the first thing when somebody comes to us, we've got to go through all 3 areas first. We start with tax, and then we go into investments, and then we go into the estate. So we got to know exactly where they're at. The second phase is we look at, okay, here's what you're doing, and then here's what you should be doing, and then here's the what's, the whys, and the how longs, okay? And so once we get that set, we got them positioned properly to have the success, then we give them some homework. So the homework is they've got to, really think through what are their expenses now, what do they think their expenses are going to be, what kind of things are you going to do, in retirement. Most people go through 3 phases, the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go. Okay, so we got to try to get all that stuff plugged into the computer. Once we got it in, then we can start doing scenarios. What if inflation is this? What if tax is this? And so forth. And give them a pretty good idea, is their money going to last? Okay? And then we set them up once with some income strategies to make sure that it's going to last.
For the people who are late in life, maybe in their 40s, 50s, that have not started anything, I'm just going to assume it's because they think that they don't have the money to. Are there situations where you can show them, yes, you have the money and you can do this?
Yeah, and well, again, a lot of them have access to 403Bs, 401Ks, and so forth, and they should be taking advantage of that. But as soon as they get up to a fair amount, they don't have to have a lot taken out, and they won't even notice it because it's not going to show up in their taxes. Okay, so that as soon as they got a fair amount built up, then they need to start another strategy, and that's what we call the tax-free strategy. Okay, so when they get to retirement, they got 2 pots of money. They got a pot that's pre-tax, and they got a pot that's tax-free. Now what can they do? Now they can manage and control their taxes later. As I said, most people never get to that point. They're only managing and control their taxes for the now. Right. So we got to look at the big picture and look at all 3 areas that I said. And if you don't do that, then you do have a strategy. And I always make kind of a joke about it. That strategy is spelled HOPE. Just kind of hoping things are going to work out. You don't have to do it that way. We can do a strategic analysis and put together what I call a retirement blueprint. And, I got a kick out of it. Once I started doing that, the engineer clients of mine, they just love that part of it. So.
Is there such a thing as putting too much money away?
Well, you've got people that do that live on a shoestring. Obviously they're better off, but you know what they do? Those kind of people do. And I've got a few clients that are like that. They've done that. They've got an enormous amount of money, and they get up there 70, 80, they can't spend it. They're so used to doing that, they just won't let go. And so what is this all for? So yeah, there's extremes. So you should build into the plan, what are your goals and dreams? What do you want to do? Well, let's make sure that you do those things, and quit putting it off. Don't wait till the no-go phase.
Right.
Okay.
Imagine.
So.
Now, what makes Generations Financial Group stand out, and what should someone look for in a retirement planning professional?
I think what really stands out and what people really like is, after several years of kind of doing things the way others did them, falling into some situations that were horrifying, it made me, sometimes those things really shake you up and make you rethink. I stood outside the box and I said, just because everybody does it this way doesn't make it right. And I got to thinking about the hospital business, and how in a hospital, you have a lot of different professionals, and they're all working on the client. But what if they didn't talk to each other? What if they didn't share their notes? It could be catastrophic. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, okay, I know taxes, I know investments, I know insurance, and I'm going to surround myself with individual companies so we don't run into jealous regulators, I'll call them. And so I I put together, my wife now, she handles the Registered Investment Advisory Division. I have two 30-year veterans in tax. I have several professionals in long-term care, experts there, and we're kind of like a hospital. You know, we all work together, just like in a hospital, everybody works together for the benefit of the patient. We're all working together for the benefit of our client, and we're eliminating all the things that do fall through the cracks. You know, the tax person really should know and understand the plan, but in 99% of the cases, they're separate from the investment advisor. So we need to close the gaps. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's working together for the benefit, and you know, I think that's the thing that really sets us apart.
And what services do you offer?
We offer investments in a different way. We can do anything, and this is the investment company. We can do anything anybody else can, but we, in most cases, do it differently, okay? And again, most of our clients are near retirement or in retirement, although we can take all ages. But, you know, when you're in retirement, and when we're talking just about investments, you need every advantage. You need to recognize that things are not as they always have been. The world is a little bit dangerous. And so when people come into retirement, most of them have had all mutual funds, okay? But let's be real. If something really bad happened at 10 o'clock in the morning, do you want to at least the opportunity or the ability to get out at 10:01? Right. Okay? And the mutual funds don't work that way. And I'm not against mutual funds. I'm just saying that, you know, at my age, I want every advantage, and I would assume that everybody else would too. That's not the way mutual funds work. So you see, if something really did happen and you got all your money there, you're going to get the last price of the day. And that might be just a little too late. I want every advantage. So that's investments. In tax, generally never see any tax planning, okay? And we got to take them line by line through their tax return. And that's not to say that the CPAs aren't doing a good job. They do a great job. But what is their job? Their job is to look back at what you did. You give them your 1099s, your W-2s, your K-1s, all the deductions you can think of, and they do a great job. But somebody's got to be looking at it differently, looking forward. And so we have both sides there, tax strategy, tax preparation, okay? And then, of course, the estate as a trust advisor. Don't actually do it, but I've taught the subject. You know, the fact of the matter is attorneys don't normally get estate planning in school. My son-in-law is a classic example. Graduated from a big college in Chicago and really didn't know anything about estate planning. You know, he was right at the top of his class. So, you know, he came into our firm and we brought him up to speed. And of course, now he probably knows a lot more than I do. Okay, but that's fine, you know, but we need to make sure that everybody's working together, and we need to acknowledge that fact that I mentioned earlier. You don't know what you don't know, and we've got to challenge people with that first before they're willing to make the changes that they need to make.
Are there any investment products that you would recommend avoiding? Like I've heard annuities have high fees and things like that.
Yes, and there are some annuities that, let me go on the other side of that. There are some annuities that I'm not too excited about. I don't think they work very well. They're very expensive. There are some annuities that have just a lot of fees in them. So the problem, again, is people don't know how to sort through all of that. The Wharton School of Finance which is the most prestigious school of finance in the country, did a study on a particular kind of an annuity called a fixed indexed annuity. And if somebody's looking for some growth, but they don't want to worry about any risk or ever losing money, that's in my view, a very good place to put some of the money. And again, when we're in retirement, you've got to have, and what we've designed is you've got to have some money for later, insured. So most of my clients, I just tell them, hey, you're young enough, you need growth, but you're old enough, you need safety. Where is that in your plan? Okay? So we lay a foundation, we call that a foundation, and then there are other products that a lot of advisors don't like that are registered products, but they're provide a steady return. They're not in the market. And then we have one more, and that's the market. And in most cases, we want to be super liquid, and we want to be spread out over maybe 20 different positions, maybe 4 or 5% into each position, controlling, but the ability to move and move quickly. Okay, so if somebody didn't want to do it that way, obviously we've got all the other avenues as well. Okay, but we don't recommend things to people that we don't do ourselves. It's pretty simple to keep it that way.
What's the normal cost of doing a plan?
Well, it depends on where you go. Okay, we have a unique system in that we are a coordinated group, and it's different companies. But we can grind our costs down because I didn't have to put my tax firm down the street. I didn't have to have the investment this way. I didn't have to duplicate fax machines, copy machines, and all that overhead. And so we have been able to grind our costs down. Now, you ask what's the normal cost? Well, it could be anywhere from $5,000 or $500 to a couple thousand, let's say. Okay. And that's what I've seen, and people come in, they'll show me their plan, and that's when I start saying, okay, where's the income plan? Where's this? Where this? All I see is, a bunch of papers, a bunch of bar graphs and pie diagrams and so forth, but I don't see the real plan here, okay? So in the old days, when I did the plan, I did it kind of like everybody else. My goodness, it was in a big 3-ring notebook. It had all kinds of data and all kinds of stuff, and it really kind of depended on that person or the situation and what their needs are. If they're looking particularly for tax strategy or whatever. So it could run anywhere, like I said, for maybe $500 all the way up to $2,000. I just stopped doing that. Okay, I just completely stopped doing that. I decided, I'm very confident in what we do, and there's going to be some income off of the business that they do. Okay, whether it's on the investment side, it might be a fee only, or it might be a percentage of the thing. And since we're all together, it works fine. So I generally go through the first 2 steps. If I feel we can help them, I find a problem, I'm going to tell them right away in that first meeting. And if I feel like we could be a good fit, we don't normally just, grab everybody, if we're not a good fit, we want to end it right there. But if we are a good fit, I'll invite them to a phase 2, and that's painless too. And that's when we do the retirement blueprint, okay? And of course, I don't give that until they become a client. All right. Once they're a client, then that's going to follow them. And I want to see them, or we're going to analyze everything every year to make sure we're on track. Obviously, they'll get a new blueprint every time they come in. So,
now, what about housing value in a retirement plan?
a lot of people want to downsize. Okay. A lot of people, one of the questions, first things I'll ask people is, how do you have your home titled? Okay. And quite often they'll say joint, and we'll go immediately into the cost of probate and the delays, and I'll calculate that out. In our county, we have a form called the 13C form. So I'm going to go immediately and calculate, okay, what are just certain costs of probate, And I'll ask them, I said, if you're on a trip and something happens to both of you, do you want your kids to have it right away, or do you want them to have it a year later? You know, so if it matters, and once they see the cost, some people are shocked once they see the actual cost. We do it right in that first meeting usually. I'll have that my calculator. We're gonna go through 3 areas. We're gonna go through first tax, line by line, make sure you're not wasting money there. I mean, every advisor, in my view, should start with taxes. It's the only place that you can get 100% guaranteed return on your money. Every dollar you save in taxes, if you don't save it, that money's gone forever, and so does the growth of that money. So we want to go make sure there's no cracks, okay, in the tax plan. Then we go into the investments, and then we go into the estate, okay, and we calculate all that out. So that gives me a real good idea of, is there a problem? What can we do to make it better, and whether or not, they would like to come back and see a retirement blueprint.
Now, we keep talking about taxes. How does your company keep up with all of the changes in tax law?
Well, that's the advantage of having 2 30-year veterans, and plus the willingness to spend the money to send them regularly for continuing education to keep up, which we do.
I always hear about withdrawal rates. What is a safe withdrawal rate?
Well, there's an old school, called the 4% rule, but, that doesn't really work too well anymore. I always use the example of 2 brothers that retired 10 years apart, the younger brother watching his older brother. And the one brother retires in 1990. He's got $500,000 saved up, and he's going to take $30,000 a year, and he does. For the next 10 years, off of that $500,000, guess what he's got in the year 2000? He starts in 1990. In the year 2000, he's got over $1 million, even though he was taking $30,000. So the other brother gets all excited. I'm going to do what my brother did. And so he starts, okay? He's got his $500,000. He's going to take his $30,000. And guess what? He ends up with about $62,000 after 10 years. Wow. Same strategy. So we don't want to be doing any of those rule of thumb strategies. Things have changed. Things are not as they always have been.
Now, one thing that is just a huge topic is healthcare, and I would imagine that as people get older, especially in their retirement, this becomes an even bigger topic for them. So how do you help with that?
Well, the sooner that they start looking at those issues, obviously, when you're 65, you're going to get into Medicare and so forth. But the other issue is long-term care, and people just don't want to look at it. They say to themselves, "Well, this isn't going to happen to me." Okay, right. Statistics do not bear that out, and there are several ways to tackle that issue. I'm like most people. I don't want to just buy a long-term care policy, and pay for something that I might not ever use. So we've gotten very creative. There are other ways to cover this where it doesn't fall into that category where if you never use it, you lose it, okay? But again, people don't know about those things. They got to learn about those things. And really, the sooner, they solve that. I solved it at 48. I encourage people, the sooner, you start looking at strategies, the better. So, but generally, when people come in, they haven't done that. They need to do that because an enormous amount of money could be used up if you don't have that in your plan.
Now, some of our audience may recognize your voice. So why don't you tell us what goes on noon on Saturdays?
Okay, well, on noon on Saturdays, I do a radio show, called The Financial Coach Show on News Talk 1370 WSPD. And I have fun with that, and I have a fellow that's a former sports announcer. I used to just kind of do it myself and bring some guests in, but it's kind of fun having somebody else pop questions at me, kind of like you're doing right now, you know. And so, it's an hour show, and we try to cover a lot of different subjects, some of the things we've talked about already here.
Now, for people who are interested, can they go to your website and find some information?
Absolutely. Our website is www.genfg. That's GENFG. And that's short for Generations Financial Group, GENFG. And so they can go there and they can see workshops that we're doing, information, some video spots that we've put on there. So yeah, just plug in if you want to say, hey, I'd really like to go to one of your workshops. Get online, check and see, make a phone call.
And for our final thoughts, what advice do you have for people who are right at that point where they know they need to do this?
Well, the sooner the better. Get some help, and make sure it's not a one-trick pony. And that's why I set it up the way we did, with all these professionals that are willing to work together for your benefit. Don't go to just somebody that just does investments, and then tries to send you somewhere. Don't go to somebody that just does annuities. I mean, this has to be a coordinated plan. And I always go back to the hospital. You need all those professionals coordinated, working together, sharing information to get you out of that hospital. And in what we do, I can't do it myself. I need these professionals, I need their input, and we work together so that we can get our clients through retirement and make their money last.
Sam Foreman, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.